Bias is an important topic and it's kind of mysterious, so I'll make it real easy for you. It's like adjusting the carburetor on a car. So if you have 4 tubes, that's like having 4 carburetors, and they have to be synchronized for the best performance. Now, if a manufacturer tells you they have automatic bias, 99% of the time, that means cathode bias, and that's not good. Cathode bias works great, but most of the power goes up in heat, and you'll find that many cathode bias amps run in class A. So by definition, they're going to be running the tubes pretty hard, and you're going to be replacing tubes a lot more often. So that leaves us with amplifiers that have manual bias. If you have a bias adjustment for each tube, that's fine. If you have one adjustment for 2 tubes or 4 tubes, that means you have to use matched sets. So if one tube fails, you're going to be replacing a matched set of tubes, which is pretty expensive, difficult, and frustrating. We wanted to eliminate that. So over 10 years ago, PrimaLuna invented Adaptive AutoBias. It's very much like fuel injection in a car. Each tube is looked at in real time. It's adjusted to operate into a perfect operating parameter, reducing distortion by over 50%. It eliminates the need for matched tubes, and in fact, you don't even have to use 4 KT88s. You could use an EL34, KT88, KT120, and 6L6GC, and Adaptive AutoBias will make them all work and play nicely in the sandbox. Also, you should know that Adaptive AutoBias is passive. It's not in the signal path, so there is no sonic downside to it. The only thing that it does is make the amp sound better and make your life easier. Nobody else has Adaptive AutoBias. There is one company that has something similar, but they charge you $127,000 for that amplifier. You don't have to spend that much with PrimaLuna. Recently, we improved Adaptive AutoBias. In other amplifiers, if a tube fails, the owner has to guess which tube it is. And while he's doing it, he's going to be replacing fuses or even soldering in resistors. We wanted to eliminate all of that. In a PrimaLuna, if a tube fails, the amplifier goes into protection so nothing can get hurt. A red LED lights up right in front of the bad tube. All you have to do is plug in another one, turn the amplifier back on, and go. It eliminates the guesswork, but more important, it eliminates you having to box up an amplifier, call the serviceman, take it to UPS, and send it off to get fixed. It makes everything a lot simpler. All PrimaLuna products since the beginning have been made with point-to-point wiring, and there's a reason for that. Point-to-point wiring sounds better and it lasts forever. And it's always been like that. Back in 1967, Marantz made a preamp called the 7. You could buy it for $264 as a 7C, which had vacuum tubes and point-to-point wiring, or a 7T, which was solid state with printed circuit boards. Fast forward to today, and the 7C is worth about $6,000, and the 7T is worth maybe $800. The reason is twofold. First, point-to-point wiring sounds better. You spend a lot of money on cables and interconnects, so do you really want the signal to go through a little skinny trace? Second is, point-to-point wiring lasts forever. If you mount an RCA jack or a speaker terminal or a tube socket to a printed circuit board, it's going to fail. It could be from the heat, from the vacuum tube. It could be from installing tubes in and out and the PCB flexes and cracks. You're going to take it to a service guy. He's going to put a jumper over the traces, but at some point it may become unrepairable. To make a product with point-to-point wiring is much more expensive. It's much more labor intensive than wave soldering a PCB. But it sounds better and it lasts forever. You only find it on the most expensive high-end products. And we are so happy to offer it to you in a PrimaLuna. Let's take a look at a $9,000 preamp made by another manufacturer. As you can see, it uses a simple selector switch to go between the different components you're listening to. And that selector switch is hooked up to long computer ribbon cables going from the front of the preamp to the back. The problem is that signals, stray RF, noise is going to leak into the system, and it's going to do it in two ways. First is selector switches are not perfect. They don't have good contact, and you're going to have leakage between components. Everybody's had the experience of having a CD end, and in the background you can hear the radio playing. The other thing that happens is you have long wires running from the front to the rear, and that's just inviting opportunities for noise. At PrimaLuna, we found a better way. We use a sophisticated controller board in front, which opens and closes high-quality Japanese relays mounted in the rear. So when you switch to CD, that relay closes, giving you much better contact than you could ever get from a switch. All the other relays are left open, so there's no opportunity for noise to get in from other sources or from just stray signals that operate around us. In addition, we've now eliminated the need for long wires going from the front to the rear. And in fact, the signal path is almost zero. So everybody talks about PrimaLuna products being so quiet that music emerges from blackness. And this is a big reason for that. Output transformers are the key to how an amplifier sounds, and ours are mentioned often in the magazines because of their wide bandwidth. They were engineered by two top-notch designers, one in the United States and the other one in the Netherlands. That's why our 36-watt amplifiers will have better bass response than other manufacturers that claim 100 watts. Power has nothing to do with bass response. Bandwidth does, and that's why PrimaLuna's sound so good. PrimaLuna wants to make sure that your amplifier never goes to the shop, even if it's an accident that was outside of your control. Our power transformers have protection that shuts them off in the event of overheating. Our output transformers have protection in the event that somebody hooks up speaker terminals wrong or something comes loose. These things cost a little bit of money to put in, and we feel that everybody should put them in because at some point you're going to be out of warranty, and we want to make sure that you're happy years and years down the road. PrimaLuna uses the Alps Blue Velvet Potentiometer to control volume. Why is that important? If you don't have proper tracking as you go up and down in volume, the stereo image can collapse. The Blue Velvet is an audiophile grade product, and it lasts and it stays quiet. I see a trend among manufacturers to go to a digital chip to control volume. It's very tempting to use a $2.50 solution, but we're not going to do that. And the other thing is, chips sometimes fail, and we have no problems with the Alps pods. They're phenomenal, and they sound good.